Remember when I said we were going to talk about this spoon that I got in the mail? That's this video. Hello, welcome back to my channel. We're going to talk about the books that I read in May, and I'm sitting in a chair for once. I've been filming these on my floor, so yeah, this is just, now you're seeing another shelf in my bookshelf, but we're not here to talk about that. Let's jump right into it. This first book, you got a little bit of a teaser in it in the last wrap-up video, but it is The Rule of Three by Sarah Kate. This is the book that showed up with a spoon in the mailer, and at the time I was sort of like, oh, what is this engraving? And turns out it is the restaurant featured in this book that one of the characters opens. It also came with a weighted eye mask, and that's cute. I haven't used this yet, but this spoon has just been sitting on my desk ever since, and it's kind of getting in the way, but it's also kind of funny because I look at it and I remember the package that I got. 10 out of 10 marketing. The Rule of Three is my first Sarah Kate book, so I was familiar-ish with the Salacious Players Club series. I have Praise on my shelf, I still haven't gotten to it for whatever reason, but at the beginning of this year I was kind of like, I really want to get to a Sarah Kate book this year, and I still haven't until this point. So I was jumping in to the Salacious Legacy, which is the second gen of Salacious Players Club, and this book is the second book in that series. It has three main characters, Julian Cade, Freya Kapoor, and Archer Wilde. Julian is a child of one of the OG Salacious Players series couples. So he's rich and set up to inherit the Salacious Players Club in France. Freya is a personal chef, and she has dreams of opening her own restaurant. Right now she's like sort of in between jobs. She's waiting for her job in Japan to start should she accept it. And Archer is also a rich man, but not as rich as Julian's family is, I think. His family owns an aviation company, and he just does street fighting for whatever reason. I think he just does not want to fit into this mold of whatever his parents want him to be, so he's doing his own thing and has somehow ended up in Paris along with the other two. They are a couple. I will say I've not read anything like this. I've read White Shoes before, but it's also been a really, really long time, and this was really fun. So the three of them get stuck in an elevator in Julian and Archer's apartment building. They don't know it at the time, but Julian and Archer live on different floors in the same building. Julian lives on a higher floor than Archer does, and that's how this whole thing starts. I will start with Freya. I loved her energy and her determination to succeed in a male-dominated space, and I think her concerns of whether opening a restaurant in Paris was the right move is valid, and whether or not it would succeed is valid, and just trying to come up with the funds to open this restaurant and make this dream possible. Any sort of venture like this is huge, and it's a big change, and I think she handled it really well. Let's talk about the men. I think I liked Julian a little bit more than I did Archer. Julian is a switch, and I hope YouTube does not block me for what I'm about to say. I had a lot of fun with Julian simply because he is a switch. It gets a little icy when he's a dom, but he is so down bad as a sub, and it's so fun. I related a lot to Julian's anxiety because my own therapist gets anxious when I tell her all the things that I'm currently handling and all the projects I'm working on, the things that I do outside of work, and trying to balance all of that on top of my ongoing health issues. It's a lot. And she gets anxious for me, and she has no idea how I'm dealing with it, but that's also why I see her every other week. It does get a little exhausting running through every single possibility of every single situation, so I understood him from that point of view, but I also wouldn't change Julian for the world. Archer is somehow the most non-committal character in this book, but also the one character that held everybody together when the entire relationship was in shambles. his growth is also admirable because he finally had a reason to stay instead of just run onto whatever's next and just keep running from his problems. This book set me up so well because I'm really excited to dive into the rest of the Salacious Players universe, and Praise will be next. I will read this soon. This next book I don't really have much to say about because I thought it was just okay, but it is a good spring to summer read, and that is Burnout Summer by Jenna Ramirez. I finished this one right before I went on vacation, so it was kind of like a good transition into more summery books. This book focuses on Camille, who just got fired from her corporate job after 4 years, and she is 4 years out of college. She knows she should probably look for another job, but instead she's going to spend the summer with one of her friends, Danny, in Elswick, Rhode Island. The title is Burnout Summer because Camille is severely burnt out from her corporate job. Real. And she needs to figure out what her next steps are. Ideally, it would be to get another corporate job, maybe somewhere in Boston, maybe somewhere in Rhode Island, but either way, it's going to be corporate. Her love interest is Danny, and they were in the same friend group in college. Danny is kind of known as the slacker, always took things really easy, didn't really care much for school, but now he owns a restaurant that he inherited from his uncle in Rhode Island. So Danny makes her an offer: come work for me for the summer while you figure things out and just take this time off to recover and figure it out. So that's what the book covers. The book covers an entire summer of Camille and Danny in Elswick, Rhode Island, while Camille figures out what's next, and Danny sort of encourages her to follow her dream instead of go back into a soul-sucking corporate job. I was not a fan of Camille. She felt very self-absorbed and in like an anxious way. I don't know if that makes sense, but she was so worried about what other people would think of her if she did not have a corporate job and like followed in the footsteps of the other friends in this group. But on the other hand, Danny was a great character. He is kind of the opposite of Camille. He's more chill, and obviously he is stressed about the things related to his restaurant, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. And I'm glad that he could finally sit down and talk to Camille about why he felt like he never really fit in, because it seemed like the group never really gave him a chance to do that. The third book that I read in May is The Worst Wedding Day by Pippa Grant. I took this one to Toronto with me, actually. I typically don't take physical books on vacation, but I figured, hey, I just got this in the mail. It comes out the day I get back, so I might as well. Let's see how far I get into it before it releases. Toronto was very windy. It was cold and it was windy, so this book taking place in Hawaii just made everything a little bit warmer. Lainey is a bridesmaid in her best friend Emma's wedding, and she is tasked with babysitting Theo, her brother. When Lainey arrives, she's forced to share a villa with Theo because there isn't another one available, and Emma promised that when another one became available, Lainey would move into that one. Theo's just a sweetie. He really wants his wedding to go smoothly, without any problems, even though he despises her husband-to-be. Unfortunately, everybody sees Theo as still this immature boy, but as the reader, you see how he really isn't that image anymore, and people refuse to let go of that image that they've built of him. You can see all the ways that Theo shows up for his sister and everything that he does to make sure that Emma's happy. He maintains this immature image because it's just easier than trying to explain what he does for a living. And I understand that because it's in the adult entertainment industry. And Lainey is a goody two-shoes, and she's always been perfect, as people would say. She's a people pleaser, so of course she said yes when Emma asked her to babysit Theo. But Lainey, being a goody two-shoes, she is the complete opposite of Theo, so being forced to share a villa with him for an entire week while they do wedding activities, that's not ideal. But even still, she keeps Theo out of trouble and does anything Theo asks related to the wedding. I really liked how Theo grew into the more mature version of himself over the course of this book. The book starts with him causing a little bit of chaos, but it really just ends with him wanting his sister to be happy. And Pippa making Theo a loud sneezer made me feel really seen because I live in a house with a loud sneezer and it's a jump scare every time. The next book that I read in May is Trope Sick by Lauren Oakey. This one was fun. I also read this on vacation because I am emotionally attached to my Kindle and I took it with me everywhere, even on vacation. Trope Sick was like taking a little bit of home with me on vacation because it takes place in Long Island. Sorry, on Long Island. And it's specifically in like the Hamptons area. I've never been to the Hamptons. I don't go to Long Island really, but like just the environment. It felt like it was very Long Island. The female main character, Katie, is a ghostwriter for best-selling author Meredith Bradford, and she has been the ghostwriter of her books for many years. But for her next novel, Katie is forced to collaborate with her dead brother's best friend, Tyler. And that's because her agent doesn't have any time to find another person. The person that she was supposed to work with dropped out at the last minute, and they have like 6 weeks to get this manuscript done and needs to be done by the end of summer. So they agree to not talk about what happened 11 years ago, and they agree to just put their differences aside and get this book done. Katie and Tyler are messy, but you can't look away either because you so desperately want to know what happens next and how their story ends. Tyler is a yearner through and through. There is no other way to describe him, and he keeps trying to talk to Katie about what happened 11 years ago and try to explain himself because in her mind, he just disappeared. But there was a reason why he disappeared just like that without saying anything. Katie, however, does not want to talk about it because it took her many, many years to get over the fact that Tyler just up and left. So she's in a good place and she doesn't want to mess with that. But I liked that because they do eventually end up talking about it, but it also told me that Katie just really needed to be in the right headspace in order to talk about her brother's death. I really like that this book was a love letter to romance because it has everything that a romance book needs and everything that romance readers love. And the format of this book is like a book in a book because obviously they're writing Meredith Bradford's book, so that is included in here as well. But this book kind of dragged a little bit because of how many chapters there were. The chapters are short, but there's also like 90 of them. So it's a lot, but also not at the same time because the physical copy isn't that big at all. It's probably like 350 pages. We're on to the last book, and this one, oh, it makes my heart just And it is The Devil We Crave by Jagger Cole. I've been reading Jagger Cole's books for about 2.5 years now. I'm not as deep into the Jaggerverse as you think I am, but I've been following his books for a very long time. Jagger is pretty much the only dark romance author I read now because they're just so good. I don't know what he puts in these books, but I devour them. Regardless, it takes me like 2 days maximum. That's how fast I read them, even though they're this big. And I am so grateful that Jagger sends me his books. Jagger started talking about his Next Gen series while we were in the middle of the Darkest Dance series, and so I've been really excited for this for a very long time. And this book features the children from Deviant Hearts and Dance of Monsters, which is really fitting, and you'll see why. This book takes place in Connecticut, and it is at Knight's Blood University, which is sort of the university that children of mafia families go to, so they're all like mafia royalty. This world can get a little complicated because it's very big, and I was still a little confused reading this, but off the top of my head there are 4 societies that you could possibly pledge to. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, and I don't remember what all of them do, but Parabellum is the big one, and that is where all of the next leaders of these mafia families pledge to. Join? Pledge? You get the idea. Achilles Dracos is the son of Ares Dracos, and I believe his book is Deviant Hearts. I will correct myself if I'm wrong. But he is described as the golden boy. Everybody looks up to him. Every girl wants to date him. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with him, but he, in my opinion, is just as psychotic as Nero is. and Nero is in Dance of Monsters. Yelena is the daughter of Nero and Malena in Dance of Monsters, and she's pretty straight, I would say, because her father is psychotic. He's batshit crazy. I won't even lie about that. He's batshit crazy. There's no other way to describe him other than psychotic and batshit crazy. But although I think those two go hand in hand. Yelena gets mistaken for somebody else by a masked man who turns out to be Achilles at this party that one of the societies is throwing. I believe it's at the Parabellum house, so it might be a Parabellum party. Either way, this starts Achilles' obsession with Yelena, and that's sort of how their relationship starts. Achilles does not really leave Yelena alone, and yes, I know that's a red flag, but we make exceptions in dark romances. In any other situation, I would tell Yelena to move as far away as possible from Achilles, but in this case, she's a little stuck. She's stuck at university. Achilles is in fact psycho, and I don't know if that's like right to say that about somebody that young, but he and Nero are more alike than I think. Nero doesn't quite believe that yet, but he is slowly opening his eyes to it, and to the man that has captured his daughter's heart. He's actually really sweet as a father, honestly. Like, I was not expecting that, because I think I saw a little bit of it in his book, but I also didn't see enough of it for me to like truly believe that he can be soft. I think Achilles, his head is a little big, so his like ego is just really up there. Achilles is still young though, so he has a lot of time to figure it out and grow into himself. I really enjoyed his character, even though it took him a minute. He finally understood where he went wrong with Yelena, despite the fact that he wouldn't change anything about how they got together. I would argue that Yelena had more growth than Achilles did. She has this dark interior that she has not let come out until she met Achilles. He sort of threw her into the deep end of these dark fantasies that she has, but she handled it really well, and I don't think she gives herself enough credit for that. And a huge, ginormous middle finger to Kyle, because it's always a guy named Kyle messing up girls like Yelena who don't deserve that in their lives. You'll understand when you read it. So that is everything that I read in the month of May. My camera's having issues, so I won't talk about what books I plan to read in June, but I've already read one, and I am finally caught up in my reading goal, which is very exciting. A lot of arcs this month, but now that I'm not swamped with arcs that I've signed myself up for, hopefully I'll have time to read the books that are actually on my shelf, because if they're not read by the end of the year, they have to leave, which is unfortunate. So let's hope and pray that I make at least a dent in the number of books that I have that are unread. I hope you found something new to read, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.